We all know that Abu Bakr was one of the closest companions of the Prophet, trusted, wise, and humble. But what was his life really like each day during the early Caliphate? Imagine stepping fully into the streets of Medina, where clay homes glow in the first sunlight. Children chase hoops through dusty lanes. Women carry water past elders. And every small gesture contributes to a delicate rhythm of community and care. In today's video, we'll explore what life as Abu Bakr would actually feel like, walking among the people, learning, and leading in those early days. So let's not waste any time, and let's begin. You step fully into the morning streets of Medina, where narrow lanes wind between sun-baked clay homes. Smoke curls gently from small hearths, carrying the earthy scent of freshly baked bread and the faint aroma of herbs. Wooden shutters creak open as families stir, and the first light of day warms the walls, softening the town's muted tones. Children run ahead, laughing quietly as their bare feet kick up tiny clouds of dust, while neighbors exchange nods, smiles, and brief greetings shaped by a life built on shared effort and trust. A woman carries a jug of water through the street, pausing to nod at an elder leaning on a cane who replies with a gentle smile. Each encounter is brief but sincere, a subtle rhythm of courtesy that binds the community together. From doorways and small alcoves, you glimpse woven mats being arranged, baskets being lifted, and cooking fires lit for the morning meal. Even the animals, goats, chickens, and a few donkeys, move in a measured flow, integrated seamlessly into the town's quiet energy. The air carries layers of sound, the soft clatter of pots, children's laughter, the faint bleating of goats, and the rhythmic scraping of brooms across clay floors. You pause to watch a boy roll a wooden hoop along the lane, its steady thump echoing like a heartbeat. Life in Medina is calm, yet purposeful. Each motion, however small, contributes to a delicate balance between private households and the shared life of the streets. As you continue walking, the sense of communal vigilance becomes apparent. Residents act with quiet attentiveness, mindful of one another, and the town hums with the harmony of interconnected routines. Laundry flutters above courtyards, fires glow in preparation for breakfast, and women exchange brief words while carrying out morning chores. Everything is simple, yet nothing is neglected. Each small act reflects an understanding of responsibility, cooperation, and care. The farther you go, the more the city's pulse quickens. The distant clatter of carts, the creak of shutters being opened, and the murmured voices of merchants arranging baskets signal the awakening marketplace. Here, the streets that have guided you through homes and courtyards now lead toward a growing center of activity, where trade and interaction will fill the air with purpose and energy. By the time you round the corner, the first merchants are setting out their goods, dates, grains, and simple fabrics, and the faint aroma of warm bread draws you toward the stalls. The city has shifted from the quiet intimacy of morning routines to the bustling rhythm of communal life, ready to teach the lessons of trade, fairness, and trust that keep Medina thriving. The marketplace hums with life as merchants lift shutters and arrange their goods in neat piles. Baskets of plump dates glisten in the morning sun. Sacks of wheat and barley are carefully weighed, and bolts of fabric, dyed in simple but pleasing colors, hang in orderly rows. Each stall carries the quiet pride of its keeper, who greets customers with measured words and warm eyes, offering goods with honesty that feels guided by a moral code larger than mere commerce. Buyers approach with attention, examining each item carefully. A woman lifts a handful of dates, turning them over in her fingers to judge ripeness. A man measures grain with a small wooden scoop, then balances the weight against a coin, nodding in satisfaction at a fair trade. Bartering is a gentle art here, conducted with patience and respect, and even a minor disagreement is resolved through calm dialogue rather than raised voices. Trust and integrity seem to flow as naturally as the exchange of goods, and it becomes clear that trade is more than survival. It is a means of sustaining the soul of the community. Children wander among the stalls, learning early lessons in commerce by observing their elders. A young boy watches a merchant carefully count coins, mimicking the motions with his own tiny wooden tokens. Nearby, a girl runs past with a small basket of herbs, her laughter mingling with the clatter of pottery and the gentle hum of conversation. Every sound and motion reinforces the sense of a living, breathing economy, one that depends on fairness, patience, and the shared commitment to the well-being of all. The stalls themselves are simple but purposeful. Wooden frames support cloth canopies that shield goods from the harsh sun, and baskets are lined with palm leaves to keep food fresh. The merchant's hands are skilled and steady, whether arranging grain, tying fabric, or cleaning the smooth surfaces of clay jars. The marketplace is a space of learning as well as exchange. Wisdom is passed through small conversations, advice on preservation, or the careful weighing of goods. You begin to see the rhythm of early Muslim life expressed in these acts. The combination of practicality, morality, and community woven together in daily routines. Among the merchants, you notice travelers stopping to rest and share stories. A caravan from the south recounts a journey through windswept deserts. Tales of strangers met and dangers narrowly avoided. Their experiences are listened to respectfully, and local buyers and sellers ask questions, learning not only about goods, but about the wider world beyond Medina. Trade is thus not merely transactional. It is a conduit for information, trust, and shared experience, anchoring the city in both local and regional networks. The sun climbs higher, warming the clay floors of the marketplace and lending a golden hue to every surface. Even in this simple economy, the care with which each action is performed, measuring, counting, observing, listening, reflects a larger sense of purpose. You feel that you are witnessing more than commerce. You are seeing how a community sustains itself through honesty, patience, and mutual respect. How every purchase, every exchange, is a tiny reinforcement of societal harmony. As you wander deeper into the marketplace, the inviting aroma of freshly baked bread begins to rise from a nearby alley. You notice a small household preparing flatbreads over hot stones, the warm smell curling into the street and mingling with the scent of dates and grain. Your attention is drawn irresistibly toward this humble home, where the simple act of sharing a meal promises another window into the life of early Medina. The marketplace begins to fade behind you, replaced by the comforting intimacy of domestic life, and you follow the scent, ready to step into the quiet warmth of a family preparing their daily bread. The narrow alley opens into a modest home where the air is thick with the warm, comforting scent of baking bread. Inside, a woman works deftly, rolling dough into thin discs before laying them over a flat, heated stone. The rhythm of her hands, steady and practiced, is mirrored by the quiet movements of children fetching water, arranging small plates, and helping in their own small ways. Smoke curls gently from the hearth, carrying the aroma of grains and herbs that season the simplest of meals. Around a low wooden table, family members gather as the first flatbreads are removed from the stones. There is no lavish spread, just bread, a small bowl of dates, and water, but the simplicity does not lessen the warmth. Everyone shares freely, offering portions with gentle smiles and words of encouragement. Laughter bubbles softly as a child recounts a small misadventure from the morning, while elders nod in quiet appreciation of life's small joys. In these unassuming acts, hospitality is not just custom, it is a way of sustaining bonds, a daily ritual that reinforces trust, care, and unity. You watch as guests arrive, invited without ceremony, and are welcomed as part of the household for the brief time they are there. Tea is poured into small cups, and bread is broken with hands that know both hard work and gratitude. Conversation flows easily, touching on the day's plans, recent news, and verses of the Quran that shape thought and action alike. The rhythm of eating together, speaking gently, and attending to each other's needs forms a subtle but powerful network of communal strength. You sense that such shared moments are as vital to Medina as the marketplace or the mosque. These small meals carry the weight of culture, morality, and social cohesion. Outside, the courtyard glows with the early sun, highlighting the smooth, sun-baked clay walls and the small plants carefully tended in pots or patches of earth. Children dart in and out, balancing play with helpfulness, learning the values of responsibility and care in the process. You notice the quiet, unspoken system of respect. Elders are served first. Hands are washed before meals, and every guest is treated with consideration. Even the simplest act, like breaking bread or offering a date, becomes a lesson in mindfulness and human dignity. The woman tending the bread pauses to offer you a small piece, her gesture warm and deliberate. You take it, noticing how the taste, though plain, carries the essence of effort, patience, and care. In this home, sustenance is not merely physical. It nourishes relationships, gratitude, and a sense of belonging. Every loaf, every shared bite reinforces the invisible threads that hold the early Muslim community together, teaching that generosity and hospitality are not acts of luxury, but of necessity and faith. As the meal concludes, the sounds of preparation, conversation, and laughter gradually soften. The family moves toward their daily tasks. Children scamper off to fetch water or tend small chores, and the adults settle into their routine. The sense of calm and purpose lingers, leaving you with an understanding of how deeply shared meals weave into the social and spiritual fabric of the town. Just then, a soft knock at the door breaks the gentle quiet. You rise with the family to open it, revealing neighbors ready to fetch water and exchange brief greetings before beginning their day. The clatter of pottery and the rhythmic splashing of water from jars, carried on shoulders, signals the next journey. You step back into the courtyard, following the familiar flow of daily life, guided toward the well, the hub where sustenance, conversation, and communal care converge once more. Stepping out into the sunlit streets, you follow the familiar sounds of clinking pottery and soft voices toward the heart of the neighborhood, the well. Here, life gathers and flows in gentle rhythms. Women bend gracefully to draw water, their hands steady as they lift heavy jars and balance them on their heads. Each movement is practiced and precise, yet there is room for conversation, laughter, and counsel. As one woman steadies a jar for her friend, they exchange news of neighbors, upcoming meals, and small household matters, weaving together the social fabric as skillfully as they handle the water. Children scamper along the edges of the well, their bare feet kicking up small clouds of dust as they play simple games. Their laughter is a counterpoint to the measured clink of pottery and the gentle hum of adults working. Elders lean on canes or rest against the low walls, calling out reminders about not wasting a drop, advising on proper storage, and recounting small lessons of patience and foresight. Every voice, whether youthful or aged, contributes to the sense that this singular well is far more than a source of water. It is the pulse of communal life, a gathering place where practical needs and social bonds intersect. The water itself glistens in the morning sun, drawn from a deep stone cistern, cool and clear. Women lower jars and pull them up again with synchronized effort, often with a helping hand from a neighbor. Even the smallest tasks, filling a jug, balancing it, carrying it back along uneven streets, become moments of collaboration, teaching you the quiet strength of shared responsibility. Each jar lifted, each careful step embodies the rhythm of everyday life and the unseen care that sustains it. Conversations float through the air alongside the water. A neighbor recounts the planting of seeds in her garden, while another asks advice on preserving dates for the coming months. Shared stories, questions, and gentle laughter make the well more than a utility. It becomes a space where wisdom is passed along, where children learn observation and respect, and where the community's pulse is most visible. Even brief interactions carry weight. A nod of thanks, a careful hold of a jar, or a reminder to use only what is needed reinforces the values that guide Medina's early inhabitants. As you watch, a woman helps a young boy lift his jar, and the boy beams with pride. You notice the subtle order in the movement around the well. Everyone seems to know their rhythm, leaving space for one another, waiting patiently, and offering aid without needing to be asked. It is a choreography of necessity and care, one that has been refined through years of communal living and mindful attention to both resource and neighbor. The well is also a place of quiet observation. You see patterns in who comes first, who stays to chat, and how children learn their roles by watching and imitating. Through these small acts, the well teaches lessons about interdependence, mindfulness, and the value of shared effort. Every drop drawn and every jar carried becomes a reminder of the delicate balance that sustains both body and community. Eventually, the flow of people shifts, and you notice the familiar path leading away from the well. Some carry water home, some linger a moment longer to chat, while others move on toward their daily labors. You follow the stream of footsteps, the sense of shared purpose lingering in the air, guiding you naturally toward the mosque, the spiritual center where the rhythm of community life deepens and transforms into devotion, learning, and quiet reflection. Leaving the well behind, you follow the worn path toward the heart of Medina, where the mosque rises modestly, yet unmistakably, from the surrounding streets. Its mud brick walls are warm under the morning sun, and the scent of dry earth mingles with the faint aroma of date palms that shade the courtyard. Palm trunk pillars support a simple roof, providing welcome shade for those who gather here, while low benches and woven mats invite study, conversation, or quiet rest. Birds flit along the thatched roof, their soft calls weaving into the gentle murmur of the early morning. Students sit cross-legged beneath the shade, their voices blending in low recitation as they memorize and discuss Quranic verses. Each word is spoken with care, not for display, but as a living practice, a connection between mind, heart, and community. The calm intensity of learning is softened by occasional laughter or a gentle correction from a teacher, and you sense that the mosque serves as much as a sanctuary for thought as it does a space for worship. Companions move with purpose, but without haste, carrying scrolls, wooden tablets, or simple writing tools. Elder students guide the younger, demonstrating patience and generosity in their instruction. Nearby, a group rests on mats, their conversation quiet but thoughtful, touching on ethical guidance, the stories of the prophets, and practical matters of everyday life. Even in their leisure, there is a sense of reverence. Time here is spent in balance between learning, reflection, and devotion. The courtyard itself is a gentle hub of activity. A small fountain trickles in one corner, its clear water catching sunlight and adding a subtle rhythm to the background hum of voices. You notice how each person respects the space, moving carefully over mats, lowering their voices in conversation, and offering a courteous nod to passers-by. Shadows of palm leaves dance across the walls, marking the passage of time as the morning sun climbs higher. The mosque is alive with subtle energies, devotion, curiosity, and communal care, all intertwined seamlessly. Students gather around a teacher, listening intently as a verse is explained. Hands trace words on wooden tablets. Lips move in soft recitation, and eyes light with comprehension. You observe without intruding, noticing the way lessons are both structured and adaptable, shaped by the needs of those present. The patience of the instructors, combined with the attentive focus of the learners, creates a space where knowledge is transmitted not only through words, but through presence, example, and shared commitment. You pause near the edge of the courtyard, taking in the rhythm of this life. The interplay of study, rest, conversation, and devotion feels natural, unhurried, yet purposeful. The calm spirituality of the space seeps into you, inviting a quiet reflection on the balance of learning and living. Here, the mosque is not only a physical structure, but a living organism, sustained by the dedication of those who enter, and by the respect and care of the broader community that surrounds it. As the morning progresses, the gentle bustle begins to coalesce around a single corner of the courtyard. A teacher speaks, students gather closer, and the murmur of recitation shifts into the focused cadence of a lesson. The movement is quiet but purposeful, and without hesitation, you step closer, finding a place among the attentive learners. You settle onto a mat, feeling the calm weight of the space around you, and prepare to listen, absorb, and reflect as the lesson begins, ready to witness the subtle ways knowledge and devotion flow together in early Medina. You settle quietly among the students, letting the rhythm of their recitation wash over you. Voices rise and fall in measured cadence, each syllable deliberate and precise, carrying not just words but meaning woven into daily life. The teacher pauses occasionally to explain a verse, drawing connections between its guidance and the choices, struggles, and relationships of the community. Every discussion feels immediate and tangible. The lessons are not abstract ideas confined to paper, but lived experiences, rooted in the challenges and virtues of those around you. Hands trace letters on wooden tablets, fingers smoothing the lines of ink as each student practices the correct form. Occasionally, a younger learner mispronounces a word, and the correction is gentle yet firm, reflecting patience cultivated over years of teaching. Elder students offer examples from their own lives, recounting moments when honesty, patience, or courage shaped a small decision at home or in the marketplace. The circle hums with attention and reflection, and you begin to notice the subtle interplay between learning and community. Every verse, every story, every question carries lessons meant to strengthen bonds and guide action. The teacher speaks softly but with authority, inviting debate on ethical dilemmas that might arise in daily life. A student asks about fairness in trade, another about hospitality to strangers. The discussion is lively yet respectful, guided by principles and reinforced by shared experiences. You observe how deeply knowledge and character are intertwined. Understanding comes not merely from memorization, but from considering how each lesson shapes the way one treats neighbors, family, and travelers alike. The physical space itself supports learning. Mats are arranged to encourage closeness without crowding, allowing for both individual focus and group discussion. Sunlight filters through the palm trunk pillars, casting dappled patterns across the courtyard, and the faint murmur of water from a nearby fountain adds a steady, soothing undertone to the voices. Birds move along the roof, their soft calls punctuating the discussion, a gentle reminder of the life that continues beyond the circle, yet remains connected to it. You begin to sense the depth of the community's approach to education. Knowledge is not hoarded, but shared. Questions are welcomed, and answers often lead to further reflection. The learning circle is as much about forming character as it is about understanding scripture. Even the silences carry meaning, offering time to consider and internalize lessons. The atmosphere is patient, deliberate, and full of care, reinforcing the idea that early Medina thrives through thoughtful action, guided by reflection and faith. As the circle progresses, you notice subtle gestures of mentorship, a hand lightly resting on a shoulder, a nod of encouragement, an elder quietly guiding a hesitant voice. The focus is never on perfection, but on growth, understanding, and applying the teachings in ways that benefit both self and community. You are struck by how knowledge flows not from books alone, but from hearts shaped by struggle, devotion, and shared purpose. Eventually, the lesson winds down. Tablets are set aside, voices soften, and the circle disperses with the same calm deliberation that marked its opening. You rise alongside the learners, feeling the lingering resonance of instruction, reflection, and communal care. Outside the courtyard, a group gathers to journey toward the outskirts of Medina, preparing to engage with the wider landscape beyond the familiar streets. You follow them, stepping from the quiet, focused energy of the learning circle into the open air of the city's edges, ready to witness the interplay between community life and the challenges of the desert beyond. You leave the familiar streets of Medina behind, walking toward the city's edge where the solid clay walls give way to open sand and sparse vegetation. The air shifts immediately, drier, warmer, carrying the faint scent of dust and sun-baked earth. Before you stretches the desert, rolling dunes, sculpted by wind, patches of hardy shrubs, and an endless horizon that seems to blur into sky. The landscape is beautiful, stark, and unforgiving, a reminder that life beyond the city requires vigilance, skill, and respect for forces beyond human control. Shepherds move among their flocks, guiding goats and sheep across uneven terrain. Their calls are low but firm, instructing animals to turn, pause, or follow. Some carry long staffs to prod or steady the herd. Others use practice gestures, drawing on years of experience. You notice the rhythm of their work, a careful balance of observation, patience, and instinct, often punctuated by short prayers or whispered blessings. Each step through the desert is deliberate. Every movement acknowledges both the fragility and resilience required to thrive here. The sun climbs higher, and the heat begins to prick at your skin. Shadows shrink beneath the sparse palms and rocky outcroppings, offering little relief. You watch as water is rationed carefully from small skin bags, and animals are led to patches of shade or shallow springs. Even brief miscalculations, too long in the sun, a jar emptied too soon, carry consequences, making clear the precision and foresight demanded by life at the desert's edge. The desert seems vast and silent, yet it is alive with small details. You spot lizards darting across sun-baked stones, birds skimming low over the sand, and the faint shimmer of heat rising in waves from the dunes. Each element feels purposeful, a part of a living ecosystem where survival is earned through attentiveness, patience, and respect. You begin to understand why travelers, merchants, and shepherds alike treat this landscape with humility, relying on experience, instinct, and prayer to guide them safely. A small group of shepherds pauses near a rocky ridge, allowing their animals to graze while they catch their breath. They exchange news of distant settlements, rainfall, and trade routes, their words carrying practical knowledge alongside stories of hardship and perseverance. Even brief interactions are laced with caution and care, reflecting an understanding that the desert demands mindfulness in every choice. Observing them, you sense the quiet dignity of those who live attuned to natural rhythms and the wisdom gained through necessity. As you walk further, the faint sound of hoofbeats and the creak of wooden wheels reaches your ears. The dunes ahead shimmer with movement, and soon the outline of camels and travelers emerges against the horizon. A caravan is approaching, laden with goods and guarded by alert companions. You feel a subtle shift in energy. The desert's harsh solitude gives way to the anticipation of connection, exchange, and the shared purpose of long journeys. The travelers move steadily, navigating the uneven ground with practiced ease. Camels shift their weight carefully, riders adjust reins, and merchants call greetings to one another, establishing recognition and trust. You watch as the caravan draws nearer, noting the contrast between the harsh stillness of the desert and the purposeful, coordinated movement of these human travelers. Their arrival promises stories, trade, and the extension of Medina's lifelines beyond its protective walls. Drawn by the sight and sound of the caravan, you step closer to the edge of the dunes. Your pace quickens, eager to witness the exchange, the unloading of goods, and the tales carried from distant lands. The desert, with all its challenges, has opened a doorway to wider horizons, and you move forward to meet it, curiosity guiding each step. The caravan finally reaches the softer ground near the city's edge, and activity springs to life. Camels kneel obediently as merchants swing down from their mounts, hands busy with ropes and bundles. Woven sacks, clay jars, and rolled fabrics are lifted carefully and laid in neat piles, each item accounted for with practiced efficiency. The air is thick with the mixed scents of sand, leather, and spices carried from distant lands, a fragrant reminder of the miles traversed to reach Medina. Travelers exchange greetings and check inventories, their words mingling with the low grunts of camels and the scrape of wooden wheels against stone. You notice the diversity of their attire, some simple, worn from months on the road, others colored with the dyes of distant cities. Faces are tanned and lined, eyes alert yet warm, reflecting both the hardships endured and the relief of safe arrival. As sacks are opened and goods sorted, you catch snippets of conversation, stories of storms that tossed their camels, of strangers who offered unexpected help, and of the constant vigilance required to avoid thieves or wild animals. Each tale carries lessons in courage, trust, and the unseen hand of divine guidance. Merchants call out to one another, negotiating the transfer of goods, confirming weights, and arranging delivery to homes, markets, or storage. Children from nearby families dart forward to watch, fascinated by the movement of camels and the rhythm of trade, occasionally being shooed gently by elders. The city's lifeblood, you realize, flows not only through streets and courtyards, but also through these distant connections, these journeys that bring sustenance, information, and the promise of continuity. A traveler from Yemen recounts a harrowing storm that nearly overturned his camel's load of spices. His companion nods, adding how a passing merchant offered water and shade, a gesture that reminded them both of the importance of kindness and faith in uncertain moments. A woman organizing jars of olive oil, laughs softly as she tells of a stranger who guided them through a narrow pass, saving days of travel. You sense the weight of each experience. Survival depends not only on skill and preparation, but on trust, compassion, and an awareness of forces beyond human control. The unloading continues steadily, and you notice the care with which every item is handled. Dates are checked for ripeness, grains examined for moisture, fabrics unrolled to reveal their patterns and textures. Everything has a purpose, and everything is accounted for, a reflection of the balance between diligence and faith that sustains life in Medina. You begin to understand how this constant movement of goods, people, and stories links the city to the wider world, weaving together distant deserts, ports, and oases into a network that nourishes both body and spirit. As the day wanes, the desert sun dips lower, casting long shadows across the sand. The colors of the horizon deepen into golds and oranges, and the air cools slightly. The activity of the caravan slows. The last camels kneel, and merchants gather their belongings for the evening. You notice the first lanterns being lit back in the city, their gentle flicker visible even from the outskirts. The warm glow calls softly, drawing attention from the desert and guiding travelers back toward familiar streets, homes, and courtyards. With the caravan settled and stories exchanged, you take one last look at the flocks and travelers before turning your steps back toward Medina. The city rises ahead, bathed in the soft, welcoming light of evening. Lanterns flicker along the streets, marking pathways, inviting you home, and signaling that even as journeys from afar arrive and depart, life in the heart of the community continues, steady, shared, and alive. You slip back into the streets of Medina as the sun dips below the horizon, and the city transforms under the soft glow of oil lamps. Warm pools of light spill from doorways, illuminating clay walls and low wooden doors. Shadows stretch across narrow alleys, and the cool evening breeze carries relief from the day's heat, rustling palm leaves and stirring the faint scent of cooking fires. The city slows, moving from the purposeful energy of day into a calmer, gentler rhythm. Families gather in courtyards and rooms, sharing simple meals of bread, dates, and milk. Children sit close to elders, listening to stories of faith, history, and morality, their eyes wide with curiosity and wonder. Laughter rises softly, punctuating quiet conversations, while small lamps cast flickering reflections on the walls. Even in this simplicity, there is warmth, comfort, and connection. Life here does not demand abundance to feel full. You notice the care with which meals are served, plates passed, and portions shared. The unspoken understanding that sustenance is both physical and social, nourishing the body and strengthening the bonds that hold the community together. The streets are quieter now, but not empty. A few late travelers return from errands or visits, greeted with nods and smiles. Animals settle near homes, lowing softly or rustling in the shadows, adding to the ambient hum of the evening. The city breathes with patience, each household attending to its own routine, while contributing to a collective rhythm. Even the sound of wind brushing against walls seems part of a larger harmony, a gentle reminder of the town's connection to the desert that surrounds it. You pause at the edge of a courtyard where neighbors are gathered, discussing the day's events. Their conversation is calm but purposeful, touching on communal responsibilities, distribution of resources, and small disputes resolved with fairness and care. You realize that governance here is not distant or abstract. It is woven into the daily lives of residents, expressed through consultation, shared duty, and mutual respect. Decisions are shaped by collective wisdom, guided by principles of justice, and strengthened by the understanding that each action affects the entire community. A neighbor notices your presence and smiles, motioning for you to join. With gentle words, they invite you to observe how the early Caliphate functions, not as a distant authority, but as a living system of guidance and care. You follow, stepping into a space where discussion is open yet respectful, where voices are measured, and where the well-being of the town is placed above personal gain. The participants exchange insights on fairness, charity, and the distribution of goods, balancing compassion with practicality. You watch as leaders listen attentively, considering the needs of widows, orphans, and travelers alike. Advice is given carefully, questions are welcomed, and decisions are reached through consensus rather than decree. There is a palpable sense of responsibility here, a recognition that authority is entrusted for the good of all, and that leadership is defined by humility, patience, and moral guidance. Even the simplest conversation about the delivery of grain or the maintenance of a public well reflects values that sustain the town and its people. As darkness deepens, oil lamps flicker across the meeting area, casting gentle light on faces marked by thoughtfulness and care. You sense the profound connection between faith, community, and governance. One cannot exist fully without the others. The town, content with modest means, thrives on shared purpose, mutual respect, and a quiet devotion that underlies every decision. The lessons here extend beyond laws and rules. They are lessons in empathy, responsibility, and the careful stewardship of both people and resources. With the evening settling around you, you leave the council's gathering and step back into the streets of Medina. Lanterns glow warmly, families continue their quiet routines, and the city hums with a peaceful energy that comes from order, care, and shared faith. You feel both an observer and a part of this gentle system, ready to follow the flow of daily life into its next chapter. You linger at the outskirts of the council gathering, listening as neighbors and leaders speak with measured calm. The words are deliberate, each statement considered for its impact on families, travelers, and the city as a whole. Questions are posed with care, and responses are given with humility, reflecting a deep awareness that authority is a trust, not a privilege. You notice how decisions are rarely rushed. Every matter, whether a dispute over a parcel of grain, a request for assistance, or guidance on behavior, receives attention grounded in fairness and shared values. Elders and respected members of the community speak first, offering insight from experience, but younger participants are welcomed to contribute, their observations weighed carefully. You watch the subtle negotiation between perspectives, the patient balancing of needs and resources, and the way consensus is sought without coercion. There is a quiet dignity in this process. Leadership is measured not by command, but by the ability to listen, understand, and guide with wisdom. The air carries a sense of reverence for both responsibility and accountability, as if every word spoken is a reflection of the community's shared conscience. Discussions shift naturally from the abstract to the concrete. A question arises about the equitable distribution of grain collected for public welfare. Leaders outline who is in need, who has already received aid, and how resources can be managed to sustain families over the coming weeks. Their transparency is striking. Records are referenced, agreements recalled, and explanations offered openly so that all witnesses understand the reasoning behind each decision. You sense that the process itself reinforces trust, teaching by example how honesty, consultation, and consideration serve as the foundation of governance. Another matter is brought forward: how to mediate a disagreement between two households about the use of shared land. Voices are patient but firm, emphasizing fairness, respect for neighbors, and adherence to moral principles. Solutions are suggested, debated, and adjusted, with the ultimate goal of harmony rather than punishment. The weight of leadership is evident not in pomp or authority, but in the careful weighing of consequences, the protection of the vulnerable, and the fostering of unity. You realize that each small choice, each judgment made with patience and integrity, shapes the daily life of the city and ensures the community's survival and cohesion. As you continue to observe, the discussion turns to the care of travelers, widows, and orphans, those whose needs are most pressing and whose voices may be quieter. Plans are made to distribute food, provide shelter, and extend practical assistance. Leaders assign tasks, invite volunteers, and establish schedules to ensure fairness and efficiency. You notice the genuine concern in every gesture, the way responsibility is shared, and the quiet pride taken in serving others without expectation of reward. Leadership here is inseparable from service. Guiding the city means caring for the people, and caring for the people is the highest expression of authority. The conversation moves fluidly from governance to action. Grain is set aside, sacks are prepared, and neighbors volunteer to carry and deliver aid. The meticulous planning you have witnessed is now poised to manifest in tangible generosity. The shift from discussion to implementation feels seamless, as if leadership, consultation, and community care are threads woven into a single fabric. Following the council's conclusion, you rise and step toward the next scene. The words spoken, decisions weighed, and agreements made now lead naturally into the movement of resources, the careful distribution of grain and cloth, and the living expression of charity. You follow the volunteers, drawn by the sense of purpose and the quiet dignity of service, ready to witness how the principles of leadership unfold in action, sustaining both individuals and the city as a whole. You step out into the streets alongside the volunteers, carrying carefully measured sacks of grain and bundles of cloth. The evening air is cooler now, carrying the faint scent of cooking fires from nearby homes. Each doorstep you approach holds a story: a widow managing a small household alone, a child clutching a clay cup, a traveler weary from the road. You watch as hands are extended, gifts accepted with humility and gratitude, and quiet words of reassurance exchanged. The distribution is methodical but gentle. Grain is poured into waiting containers. Cloth is folded and handed with care, and coins are offered discreetly to those in need. You notice the balance maintained by the volunteers. No one receives more than their need, yet generosity is never withheld. Even the smallest acts, a shared loaf, a comforting smile, a helping hand, carry profound weight. In these moments, you sense that the city itself breathes differently. The air seems lighter, infused with a calm energy born of compassion, trust, and shared responsibility. Children peek from doorways or follow silently, absorbing the lessons of charity without words. Elders nod approvingly, recognizing the continuity of a culture where giving and care are intertwined with faith and daily life. You observe the subtle interactions between neighbors, quiet advice on how to store provisions, a reminder to ration carefully, a gentle hand to steady a jar. The act of giving is both practical and symbolic, sustaining bodies while reinforcing the invisible threads that bind the community together. Travelers who have arrived from distant lands are offered assistance as well. A woman carrying a small bundle of belongings receives grain and water, and you hear her sigh with relief. A young man, exhausted from the desert heat, is given cloth to refresh himself and a coin for future needs. Every act is accompanied by words of guidance and blessing, connecting the practical to the spiritual and demonstrating how faith manifests in daily kindness. As you move from household to household, you notice that the city's rhythm itself seems altered by the flow of generosity. Conversations are softer, movements more deliberate, and smiles more frequent. The energy of giving spreads outward, touching those who receive and those who witness, creating a sense of stability and harmony that reinforces communal cohesion. You feel the impact of leadership, planning, and deliberate care. The city's well-being is not abstract, but lived, measured, and nurtured through the simple, consistent practice of charity. By the time the last of the sacks are delivered, the volunteers gather briefly to rest and take stock of what has been accomplished. There is quiet satisfaction in their expressions, a shared understanding that these actions, though small in isolation, are vital to the health and spirit of Medina. The weight of responsibility, once felt in the deliberations of the council, now transforms into tangible support and comfort, sustaining those most vulnerable while reinforcing the bonds of trust and interdependence that define the early community. As night deepens, the volunteers begin to disperse, some returning home, others preparing for the next day's work. You follow a small group who move purposefully toward the outskirts, their steps measured, their tools ready. They carry not only physical supplies, but the knowledge that the city's security and prosperity depend on vigilance as much as on generosity. You walk with them, listening to their quiet conversation about watchtowers, fortifications, and the care required to safeguard homes and families. Leaving the warm glow of the city behind, you step into the fading light of the outskirts. The air is cooler, tinged with the scent of desert sand and distant palms. Ahead, you see the path leading to simple fortifications and lookout points, where responsibility blends with vigilance. The spirit of giving, you realize, extends naturally into protection. Just as charity sustains the people, diligence and care preserve the city itself. With this understanding, you follow the group forward, ready to witness how Medina guards itself at its boundaries. You follow the volunteers along the winding path that skirts the edges of Medina, where clay walls give way to open stretches of sand dotted with scrub and hardy palms. Ahead, small watchtowers rise modestly above the terrain, simple constructions of mud brick and palm trunks, yet positioned with careful attention to sight lines and approach routes. From these perches, young men scan the horizon, alert for movement or signs of travelers. The city's safety is maintained not through intimidation, but through attentive observation and shared responsibility. Families from nearby households take turns manning these points. Some carry simple tools, ropes, lanterns, and bundles of dried palm fronds for signaling, while others check that walls are intact and gates secured. Children watch quietly from a distance, learning the rhythms of duty and the importance of vigilance. There is a sense of pride in their roles, a subtle understanding that protecting the community is as vital as tending crops or distributing charity. The work is steady, calm, and measured, reflecting the collective trust that binds the city. The fortifications themselves are modest, low mud brick walls reinforced with wooden beams, small trenches where water or sand can slow movement, and gates carefully maintained to allow passage while deterring unwanted intrusion. You notice that every structure is functional rather than ornate, a reflection of practicality and necessity over display. Each addition, repair, or adjustment is a shared effort, with neighbors lending hands and tools freely, ensuring that the community's defenses remain strong through cooperation rather than coercion. From the top of a lookout tower, you see the desert stretching beyond the city, a landscape both beautiful and harsh. The wind shifts sand across low dunes, and distant hills rise faintly against the horizon. The vigilance here is not born of fear, but of understanding. Survival and security require attentiveness, preparation, and coordinated effort. Even in moments of quiet, the presence of watchful eyes and steady hands imparts a sense of safety, a reassurance that the city cares for itself collectively. As you move among the volunteers, you hear conversations about practical matters. Which sections of the wall need repair? Which households are scheduled for the next watch? And how to coordinate signals in case of approaching travelers. Plans are discussed with respect for each participant's experience, yet with openness to suggestions, reinforcing the idea that protection is a shared, adaptable responsibility. You notice subtle acts of mentorship, an elder showing a younger man how to brace a wall, a companion offering advice on observing distant movement, a child learning to mimic signals, each a transfer of knowledge essential to the community's continuity. The atmosphere is quiet yet purposeful. Each person knows their role, and the combined effect is greater than the sum of individual effort. The walls, watchtowers, and patrols are not just physical measures. They are expressions of the city's ethic, a manifestation of the care, discipline, and interconnectedness that sustains Medina. You begin to appreciate that security here is inseparable from community. Everyone contributes, everyone benefits, and vigilance is an extension of mutual trust. After some time observing the patrols and fortifications, a companion approaches, inviting you to step away from the defensive posts and walk with them toward the fertile outskirts beyond the city's edge. The contrast is immediate. The vigilance of the walls gives way to the calm productivity of farmland, where palms sway in gentle breezes and irrigation channels glisten in the sun. Curious and eager, you follow, leaving the watchtowers behind and moving toward life that thrives not through protection alone, but through cultivation, patience, and care. You leave the watchtowers behind and follow the companion along a winding path that leads to the outskirts of Medina, where the land softens and fertility replaces the harsher desert edges. Here, palm groves stretch in orderly rows, their fronds swaying gently in the breeze, and the rich scent of damp earth and ripening dates fills the air. Farmers move among the trees, hands skilled and patient as they check each trunk, pluck fronds carefully, and inspect clusters of fruit. The rhythm of work is deliberate, unhurried, a testament to the slow, steady pace that sustains life in this arid land. You notice the irrigation channels snaking through the groves, shallow trenches lined with clay that carry water from wells and streams to each cluster of palms. Farmers lift wooden buckets, pour water carefully, and check for leaks or blockages, ensuring that every drop reaches its intended roots. Children assist with lighter tasks, carrying small jars or gathering fallen dates, learning from observation and gentle guidance. There is a sense that every action, no matter how small, contributes to the continuity of life and the health of the community. The work is physical but quiet, punctuated by small conversations between neighbors. They share advice on pruning, timing harvests, and protecting the trees from pests, exchanging wisdom gained from years of experience. Even as they toil, there is a shared joy in the process, an understanding that this labor nurtures not only the trees, but the families and city beyond. You sense the respect for the land, the reverence for water, and the awareness that the desert, though challenging, offers sustenance when approached with care and patience. The grove is alive with movement and sound. Birds flit between palm trunks, goats graze on the edges, and the soft splash of water in the channels provides a gentle rhythm. Farmers' faces are tanned and lined, marked by sun and effort, yet their expressions carry calm satisfaction. Their labor is not hurried. It is measured, consistent, and deeply rooted in knowledge passed down through generations. You notice how each palm is treated individually, yet the grove as a whole is maintained with equal attention, reflecting the balance between tending to the small and sustaining the large. As you follow your companion deeper into the grove, you see clusters of fruit ready for harvest. Hands pluck the dates carefully, placing them into woven baskets, avoiding bruising, and preparing them for drying or storage. The air is filled with the faint sweetness of ripe dates, and the earthy smell of freshly turned soil. Each basket is counted and set aside, a tangible sign of careful planning, patience, and respect for the cycles of nature. The farmer, noticing your interest, gestures toward a nearby shed. "My wife spends her mornings weaving and crafting here," he says with a quiet smile. "She turns our raw materials into cloth and household essentials. Her work supports the family and the community." You follow, curiosity guiding your steps, as the grove gives way to a smaller, shaded structure. The shed is simple, yet orderly. Bundles of wool, spindles, and half-finished fabrics are arranged neatly, awaiting the touch of skilled hands. The farmer's wife greets you warmly, inviting you to observe her craft. You watch as she spins wool, weaves threads into cloth, and demonstrates the patient repetition required to produce even a single piece of fabric. Her movements are fluid, practiced, and deliberate, reflecting the same care and respect for process that you saw among the farmers in the grove. Here, too, the rhythm of work is slow, consistent, and meaningful, a quiet extension of the life and sustenance cultivated in the land around Medina. You step closer to watch her hands move with practiced precision, twisting fibers into fine threads and guiding them across the loom with steady rhythm. The soft scratch of wooden spindles, the gentle pull of taut threads, and the quiet murmur of her instructions create a calming atmosphere, one that mirrors the slow, deliberate work of the grove outside. Each movement is intentional, a small act of care that transforms raw wool into usable cloth, and you notice the patience required to sustain such focus over hours of repetition. Other women in the shed work alongside her, each attending to different stages of production. Some card wool, aligning fibers before spinning. Others braid threads into decorative cords or dye small pieces using natural pigments. Conversation is light but meaningful, sharing tips, stories, and reminders about household needs or upcoming community events. There is a quiet pride in their work, an unspoken acknowledgement that every garment, mat, or cloth bag produced sustains not only their families, but the broader town. Even minor errors are met with calm correction, emphasizing care over speed and teaching that diligence is as important as skill. The air is filled with the faint scent of dyed fibers and the subtle rustle of weaving. Children peek in curiously, learning by observing the patient hands of their mothers and neighbors. Occasionally, a small hand assists with minor tasks, carefully threading a spindle or adjusting a loom, encouraged by gentle guidance. You sense that this workshop, like the grove before it, is a place of both labor and education, where craft and community intertwine, and where patience and persistence are taught as much as they are practiced. You notice the way materials are organized, each bundle labeled or placed with thought. Raw wool waits in one corner, finished cloth stacked neatly in another, and small tools are arranged for easy access. There is a rhythm to the environment, a flow that allows multiple tasks to progress simultaneously without chaos. Even in this modest space, you see the reflection of a larger principle, that careful attention to detail, Consistency and respect for resources is a form of stewardship, vital to sustaining household and community life alike. The women speak quietly about upcoming needs for the marketplace or for neighboring households, planning how much to produce and how to allocate their resources. You realize that this work is more than craft. It is a practical form of contribution, a way of ensuring that everyone has the materials necessary to live and thrive. Each woven thread carries intention, patience, and care, turning labor into both sustenance and connection. As you continue to watch, the soft sound of footsteps reaches the doorway. A messenger arrives, carrying a small scroll and a gentle sense of urgency. He greets the women and then turns his attention to you, indicating that it is time to return to the mosque. You rise, leaving behind the rhythmic scratch of spindles and the warm focus of the shed, carrying with you the impression of diligence, patience, and the quiet pride of those whose work sustains the fabric of daily life. Following the messenger through the winding paths, you notice how the grove and the workshop slowly fade behind you, replaced once more by the familiar streets of Medina. The rhythm of the city greets you again. The soft glow of lamps, the hum of distant conversation, the comforting sense of community alive in every doorway. The messenger's pace is steady but unhurried, guiding you back toward the mosque where knowledge, reflection, and spiritual practice await, linking the practical labors you have witnessed to the heart of Medina's enduring life. You follow the messenger through the winding streets, arriving at the mosque just as the sun reaches its zenith. The courtyard is bathed in a soft golden light, and the cool shade beneath the palm trunk pillars offers relief from the midday heat. Inside, the mosque hums with a quiet serenity. Travelers recline against mud brick walls, dozing in the soft shadows, their journeys paused temporarily by the sanctuary of this sacred space. The air carries a faint, comforting scent of sand, stone, and faint incense, mingling with the calm rhythm of whispered recitations. Scholars sit cross-legged on woven mats, their attention focused on verses traced carefully in the sand before them. Fingers follow lines of script as notes are exchanged quietly among students, each small correction or insight offered with patience. Even in this place of learning, there is no rush. The pace mirrors the steady rhythm of life outside, the measured steps of those tending groves and looms, the patient observation of watchful guardians at the city's edge. Knowledge here is not merely written or spoken, but absorbed through presence, repetition, and attentive practice. Children curl beside their parents, napping under the shade of broad pillars, their small bodies rising and falling with the simplicity of untroubled rest. Occasional murmurs of mothers or fathers soothe them, soft exchanges that blend seamlessly with the low hum of recitation and the rustle of cloth as worshippers adjust their seating. The space is communal yet intimate, each individual present yet connected to the whole. You feel the weight of calm in this environment, a reprieve from travel, labor, and observation, where time stretches gently and the city's pulse can be felt in subtle, deliberate ways. Travelers exchange quiet greetings, offering water or small morsels of bread to one and their son. The gestures are simple but significant, reflecting a culture of care and attentiveness, a recognition that even temporary rest carries a responsibility to others. Some men and women use the opportunity to pray, standing briefly in measured devotion. Their movements precise yet relaxed, connecting the physical stillness with a spiritual rhythm that pervades the mosque. You settle in a shaded corner, letting the gentle atmosphere wash over you. Your eyes trace the lines of palm pillars and mud brick walls, noting how light and shadow mingle across the courtyard. The soft chanting of Quranic verses drifts from one side of the mosque to another, interwoven with the faint scratch of fingers of sand and the muted breathing of resting travelers. Here, time seems to pause. The city outside continues its movement, but inside, a calm persists, a living space of reflection, learning, and quiet repose. As you observe, an elder approaches, greeting you with a nod and a soft smile. He speaks briefly of those in the community who are ill, whose homes require visitation and care. The invitation is gentle but insistent, a reminder that rest, though necessary, is never separate from service. The calm of the mosque prepares you for the next step, offering a pause to gather energy, observe, and reflect before entering spaces where compassion and action take precedence over quiet observation. Rising slowly, you leave the shaded mats and the soft hum of recitation behind. The cool air of the courtyard carries you toward the streets once more, where the sounds of the city blend with the knowledge that life in Medina encompasses both spiritual reflection and practical care. Guided by the elder, you follow the path toward homes in need, ready to witness how the community expresses its devotion through acts of service, tending to the sick with gentle hands and attentive hearts. You leave the mosque behind, stepping into the warmer light of midday streets, guided by the elder and a small group of volunteers. The path winds past familiar homes, where the air carries the scent of baked bread and the faint rustle of palm leaves. Soon, you reach a modest house tucked near the edge of the neighborhood. The door opens to reveal a woman reclining on a simple mat, her face pale with fatigue, her hands trembling slightly as she tries to sit upright. Children hover nearby, watching silently, unsure how to assist. The volunteers move with practiced care. One lays a soft, warm cloth across the woman's forehead. Another prepares a small bowl of herbal tea known for easing fevers. Each gesture is deliberate, precise, and infused with patience. You notice the way hands pause to offer reassurance, how gentle words accompany every action, and how the sick person's comfort is prioritized above speed or efficiency. The atmosphere is quiet yet purposeful, each motion speaking to the community's ethic. Tending to those who cannot help themselves is not a duty, but a shared expression of compassion. As the elder explains the remedies, he describes how certain herbs are gathered from nearby groves or traded from distant caravans, emphasizing the balance between local resources and wider connections. Children are invited to observe, instructed on simple acts like fetching water, folding cloths, or quietly holding a jar. Even in their small roles, they learn responsibility, empathy, and the importance of contributing to the care of others. Every person, from the youngest to the oldest, participates in the network of support that sustains the city. The woman receiving care responds with quiet gratitude, her tension easing as her needs are attended to. Volunteers adjust her position, ensure the tea is warm, and explain remedies in soft tones. The care is holistic. Physical relief is accompanied by reassurance, listening, and gentle conversation. Stories of recovery, shared experiences, and words of encouragement fill the room, creating a sense of warmth that transcends the illness itself. You sense that in Medina, community is measured not by wealth or power, but by the attention and compassion extended to those in need. As the visit continues, other neighbors arrive quietly, offering support without fanfare. A small basket of dates is handed over. A cloth is refolded, and the simple presence of caring hands adds comfort beyond any material provision. You notice how no one distinguishes sharply between volunteer and recipient. Everyone is part of a continuum of care, giving, receiving, and learning from one another. Observing this, you realize that the act of tending to the weak strengthens the city itself, weaving a fabric of trust, empathy, and mutual responsibility. Once the immediate care is administered, the elder exchanges a few words with the family, explaining how to maintain comfort, manage remedies, and support the woman's recovery. The volunteers quietly gather their supplies, leaving behind calm order and reassurance. You take a moment to reflect on the intimacy of these interactions, the small rituals, the patient gestures, the attention to detail that define the community's approach to illness and vulnerability. As you step back into the warm street, the atmosphere shifts subtly. A neighbor, noticing your presence and aware of your attentiveness, invites you to step next door. Their face carries sorrow, marked by grief from a recent loss. You follow quietly, knowing that the next lesson in communal care will be one of mourning, remembrance, and the gentle practices that honor the departed while supporting those who remain. You step quietly into the neighbor's courtyard, where a small group has gathered around the simple clay walls of a home. The air carries a hushed solemnity, and the soft murmur of prayers mingles with the faint desert breeze. The body of a recently deceased community member lies prepared on a low mat, wrapped carefully in a plain shroud. You observe as family and close neighbors move with measured calm, performing the rituals with deliberate care. Each gesture infused with reverence and faith. Elders guide the washing and shrouding, explaining softly the steps to the younger participants. Water is poured with precision. Hands are cleansed and dried, and the body is arranged with dignity. Even in this intimate moment, there is no rush. Each movement respects both the person who has passed and those who remain. You notice how grief is expressed gently but collectively, and how the community shares the burden of loss through presence, assistance, and prayer. Children watch from a respectful distance, learning the rituals and absorbing the values of care, respect, and humility. The prayers themselves are simple yet profound, recited with sincerity and attentiveness. Voices rise and fall, echoing softly against mud brick walls, while participants bow and stand in unison. The act of praying together strengthens the bonds of the living community, and even as sorrow is felt, it is accompanied by a deep sense of spiritual connection and acceptance. You realize that here, death is not hidden or feared. It is acknowledged, embraced, and integrated into daily life through ritual and shared responsibility. Neighbors take turns offering words of comfort to the grieving family, bringing small offerings of food or supplies to ease the practical burdens left behind. Each action is modest, intentional, and deeply meaningful. You notice how the care of the living mirrors the respect shown to the departed, tending to both the body and the heart, ensuring that the transition from life to remembrance is marked by compassion and collective support. The rituals are straightforward, focused on dignity rather than ceremony, reflecting a culture where faith shapes every act and simplicity carries profound significance. The community works together seamlessly. Mats are folded, water is replaced, prayers are concluded, and the body is prepared for burial with quiet precision. Each participant knows their role, and the coordination is gentle yet effective. You observe the intimate choreography of mourning, how tasks are divided, how guidance flows from experience, and how every hand, whether young or old, contributes to honoring the deceased. There is a rhythm to the process, a measured flow that turns grief into a communal act of faith and remembrance. Once the rites are complete, the family and neighbors exchange words of solace, and the courtyard begins to empty gradually. The energy shifts from solemnity to quiet continuity, as those who were present return to their routines, carrying the memory of the departed with them and leaving a space of calm behind. You notice the lingering sense of connection. Even as people depart, the experience binds them together, reminding all that life in Medina is intertwined, each moment shared with intention and care. As the courtyard clears and the sun begins its descent toward the horizon, you step back into the streets, leaving behind the soft echoes of prayer and whispered condolences. The warmth of homes and the soft murmur of the city greet you once again. Drawn by the familiar sights and sounds of daily life, you make your way toward the marketplace, ready to observe its rhythms anew. The bartering, the chatter of neighbors, and the subtle energy that sustains Medina through both life and loss. The marketplace hums with renewed energy as you approach, its narrow lanes alive with the scent of spices, the glint of polished pottery, and the colorful patterns of woven fabrics. Merchants call out softly, not with force, but with the gentle insistence of long-practiced negotiation, inviting buyers to inspect dates, grains, and cloth. Among them, two men stand facing one another, tension flickering briefly across their features. One holds a set of scales. The other points to a pile of grain. Voices rise, though measured, each word carefully chosen to support a claim, yet neither loses temper. You step closer, observing the exchange. The dispute is over a small inconsistency, weight, and the proper price for a sack of dates. Onlookers pause, curious but respectful, giving the men room to speak. Rather than escalating into anger, the merchants engage in deliberate negotiation. One recounts prior agreements, the other references customary measures, and both appeal to fairness and shared trust. There is no audience pressure, no harsh accusation, only the insistence that honesty and integrity guide the transaction. An elder merchant steps forward, a figure respected by both parties. He asks questions calmly, weighs the evidence, and offers guidance grounded in principle rather than force. Slowly, both men adjust their positions, The scales are recalibrated, a coin exchanged to balance the price, and nods of acknowledgement are offered. The resolution is clear, but the process itself feels as instructive as the outcome. You realize that justice in Medina is not only about right or wrong, but about patience, communal understanding, and the quiet exercise of moral responsibility. Nearby, neighbors comment softly, sharing insight or advice, but always in measured tones, reinforcing the sense that disputes are to be resolved with fairness rather than domination. Children watch curiously from the edges of the stalls, absorbing these subtle lessons of negotiation, observation, and civility. Even small disagreements are treated as opportunities for teaching how to communicate respectfully, honor agreements, and maintain harmony within the bustling marketplace. The air, though momentarily tense, returns to its usual rhythm as the two merchants shake hands and adjust their goods. Conversation resumes, buyers continue to inspect products, and the marketplace hums with the steady, predictable pulse of daily life. You note the ease with which fairness is restored, and the sense that the community's shared values are woven into even the smallest transactions. Justice here is lived daily, not only through formal decrees, but through the careful attention, patience, and honesty of ordinary people. As the crowd disperses and the market lanes fill with movement once more, a small hand tugs gently at your sleeve. You look down to see a child smiling up at you, eyes bright with curiosity and mischief. Without a word, the child gestures toward a modest home tucked along one of the narrow streets. The invitation is simple, earnest, and impossible to refuse. You follow, stepping away from the bustling stalls, and allow yourself to be guided toward a space of domestic life, warmth, and the everyday lessons of childhood in Medina. The child leads you through a narrow lane, past clay homes where the scent of cooking fires mingles with the sweet aroma of dates drying in the sun. As you approach a small courtyard, other children notice your presence and pause briefly, their curiosity piqued. Some carry palm fiber dolls, others roll small hoops along the ground, and a few balance on low walls, testing their agility with laughter that rings clear in the warm air. Their games are simple, yet every movement is filled with creativity and joy, a reflection of a childhood shaped by resourcefulness and imagination rather than abundance. You watch as a group gathers near a well, helping to fetch water for their families. Small hands lift jars carefully, passing them along a chain of helpers, while older children instruct the younger ones on proper technique. Even chores become a form of learning, a gentle introduction to responsibility and cooperation. As they work, soft chants of Quranic verses float in the air, recited with concentration, memorized line by line. The children weave together play, labor, and learning in ways that feel natural, integrated into the rhythm of daily life. One child demonstrates how to braid palm fronds into simple mats, explaining each step with pride, while another counts small piles of grain with meticulous care. Their attention to detail, though playful, mirrors the lessons of the adults you have observed: patience, diligence, and respect for the materials and tasks at hand. Laughter and encouragement flow freely, creating a space where learning is joyful, social bonds are strengthened, and the values of faith and care for the community are passed on organically. You notice how the children interact across age groups. The older ones gently guiding the younger, offering tips on balancing a hoop or lifting a water jar, while the youngest watch closely, eager to imitate. There is no sense of strict instruction or rigid hierarchy. Teaching occurs through example, participation, and shared experience. In these moments, you see the essence of continuity, the wisdom of the elders, the ethics of labor, and the knowledge of faith are all absorbed naturally through observation and practice, ensuring that the next generation carries forward the values that sustain Medina. Amid the courtyard, a small group pauses to listen to an elder recount a story. The children's eyes widen, captivated by tales of patience, courage, and devotion. Even in play, lessons are embedded, subtle yet lasting, connecting joy and imagination to the moral and spiritual framework of their lives. You sense that this environment, though humble, nurtures resilience, creativity, and a deep sense of belonging. As the afternoon sun begins its descent, you notice a shepherd approaching from the edge of the neighborhood, guiding a small flock of goats along the dusty path. The children wave and scatter, giving way to the animals, while the shepherd's calm demeanor suggests familiarity and trust. He pauses briefly, gesturing to you with a welcoming smile and a nod toward the rolling hills beyond the city. "Come," he says quietly. "The flocks are safe, and the hills have their lessons too." Intrigued, you step away from the courtyard and the laughter of children, following the shepherd along a path that leads out of the busy neighborhood and toward the open hills. The landscape shifts, the rooftops of Medina shrinking behind you, replaced by soft slopes, scattered palms, and the wide expanse of desert meeting distant sky. The rhythm of city life fades, replaced by the quiet pulse of nature, where patience, observation, and reflection await in the solitude of the hills. You follow the shepherd along a narrow path that winds gently over low hills, the dust soft beneath your sandals, and the horizon stretching wide and unbroken. The flock moves steadily ahead, goats nibbling sparse tufts of grass, while sheep follow with quiet rhythm, their soft bleats blending with the occasional whisper of the wind. The air is warm but calm, carrying the faint scent of earth and dry vegetation. Here, far from the city's streets, the usual hum of commerce and conversation fades, replaced by a tranquil cadence shaped by the flock's movement and the shepherd's careful guidance. Walking beside him, you notice the attentiveness required. Every step, every glance, every adjustment of the herd reflects years of experience. He points out subtle signs in the landscape, the angle of a hill that may hide predators, the dry patches where water will be scarce, the plants that are safe for grazing. Each observation is paired with quiet advice, not given as strict instruction, but as gentle reflection on the patience and mindfulness demanded by this life. You begin to understand that shepherding is not merely a task, but a meditation in motion, a practice of attentive presence in a world that rarely hurries. As the hours pass, the shepherd speaks softly of the lessons the hills teach. "Patience," he says, gesturing toward the slow-moving goats, "is more than waiting. It is understanding the rhythm of life and moving in harmony with it. He pauses, listening to the distant echo of a goat's call bouncing across a small ravine. Solitude is a teacher too. When you walk alone with the flock, your thoughts settle, and you hear things you might miss in the bustle of the town. You absorb his words quietly, noticing how the hills, the wind, and the flocks themselves all seem to embody this gentle wisdom. You watch as the children of the family occasionally join from the village edge, helping to herd smaller groups of goats, their laughter soft but careful. They learn by observation and repetition, their youthful energy balanced by guidance, and in their movements, you see continuity. The patient rhythms of life in Medina, practiced by generation after generation, shaping skill, discipline, and respect for both nature and community. You notice the small interactions within the flock, how goats follow one another, how sheep cluster near the shaded rocks, how every animal responds to the shepherd's voice or stick without coercion. There is a balance between guidance and freedom, structure and observation, that mirrors the larger patterns of life you have seen in the city. Just as the markets, homes, and mosques thrive through cooperation and attentiveness, so too does the herd move smoothly across the hills through quiet coordination and care. As the sun begins its slow descent, casting long shadows across the hills and painting the sky in hues of amber and rose, the shepherd gathers the flock, signaling for them to move back toward Medina. The animals respond obediently, their rhythm steady and unhurried. You follow, feeling the transition from open solitude to the anticipation of returning to the community that nurtures and protects it. Life. The cool evening air carries both the scent of the hills and the faint warmth of the town approaching below. By the time the city walls come into view, the hills' quiet lessons remain with you. Patience, reflection, attentiveness, and the beauty of simple, steady care. The shepherd guides the flock through the streets, now alive with the soft glow of oil lamps and the murmurs of families settling for the evening. You step alongside them, returning to Medina with a sense of continuity, carrying the calm rhythm of the hills into the heartbeat of the city. As you follow the shepherd and the flock back into Medina, the city is bathed in the soft golden glow of evening. Oil lamps flicker in doorways, casting long shadows across narrow streets and illuminating the mud brick walls with a warm, inviting light. The sounds of the day have softened. Merchants have closed their stalls, children have finished play, and the hum of conversation drifts gently from doorways and courtyards. Families gather outside their homes, settling onto woven mats or low stools, the night air carrying both a cooling breeze and the comforting scent of evening fires. You pause to observe one courtyard where a small family has assembled. A father recounts a story from earlier times, his voice calm but animated, punctuated by soft laughter from children curled beside their parents. A mother adds a gentle joke, teasing a child who had tripped over a small bundle of cloth, and the laughter flows naturally, unforced and full of warmth. A neighbor nearby recites a short poem, the rhythm and rhyme rising and falling with the quiet night. And you notice how the language weaves connection, teaching, and delight in equal measure. Other courtyards offer similar scenes. Children chase one another in the fading light, practicing nimble footwork and joyful shouts, while older siblings settle disputes with calm reasoning rather than force. Conversations range from practical matters, planning meals, exchanging news, discussing chores, to gentle reflections on faith and community, all expressed in the relaxed intimacy of shared space. You sense that these evening gatherings serve as more than relaxation. They are a way for knowledge, culture, and values to flow from one generation to the next, quietly reinforcing bonds and instilling a sense of belonging. The glow of lanterns illuminates faces filled with contentment and attentiveness. Neighbors nod to one another as they pass by, exchanging brief greetings or advice, a reminder that community extends beyond the walls of individual homes. The shared moments, whether in storytelling, laughter, or quiet companionship, create a rhythm that contrasts with the labor and travel of the day, offering both rest and gentle reflection. You notice how each household, though small, contributes to the wider tapestry of Medina, where even simple interactions reinforce connection and continuity. As you continue down a narrow lane, you hear a group preparing quietly in another courtyard. They move with purpose, gathering clay jars and woven baskets, and their whispers carry a sense of coordination and anticipation. A young man catches your eye and gestures, inviting you to join. Curiosity draws you closer, and you see that they are preparing for a late-night water run, a task essential to the community's needs. The quiet diligence of evening has shifted into purposeful action, blending responsibility with the shared rhythm of life. You step toward them, feeling the warmth of their welcome and the energy of collective effort. The lamps from the courtyards fade behind you as you prepare to move through the streets under starlight, carrying water to neighbors who may need it, learning how even small acts of service are interwoven with daily life, and experiencing firsthand the gentle but steadfast pulse of Medina after dusk. The group moves quietly through Medina's dimly lit streets, lanterns casting gentle pools of light that flicker across the clay walls. Each step is measured, careful not to jostle the filled jars of water balanced on shoulders or tucked into woven baskets. The night air is cool against your skin, carrying the soft scent of cooking fires still burning in a few homes, mingled with the faint aroma of date palms. Your hands, gripping the smooth clay of a jar, feel the weight of responsibility, and you sense how every movement matters in preserving this precious resource. As you walk, you observe the rhythm of their labor. A slow, steady pace, punctuated by brief pauses to adjust a jar or shift a basket, the group moving almost as one. Conversations are soft, reminders exchanged in whispers. Steady there, careful with that edge. Thank God for enough water tonight. You notice how even the smallest gestures are deliberate, reflecting an awareness that scarcity is not merely a challenge, but an opportunity to cultivate patience, cooperation, and gratitude. The streets are quiet, the city's usual daytime energy replaced by a hushed calm. From the distance, the faint bleat of a goat or the soft bark of a dog reminds you of life continuing gently in hidden corners. In this stillness, you feel the communal pulse of Medina, neighbors looking out for one another, each family contributing to shared survival, each task, no matter how small, carrying the weight of collective responsibility. Even as you carry water, you begin to understand how safety and peace emerge not from walls or guards alone, but from trust, attentiveness, and mutual care. Children occasionally peek from doorways, their curiosity tempered by recognition that the work is serious. You notice older siblings quietly helping their parents fill or carry smaller containers, learning early the values of diligence, respect, and shared effort. The act of transporting water becomes an unspoken lesson in empathy. Carrying another family's supply connects you directly to their daily life, their needs, and their reliance on community. The rhythm of the walk, the weight of the jars, and the coordination of the group teach patience as much as the conversations or instructions could. After several turns through the winding streets, the group approaches a small home at the edge of the neighborhood. A warm glow escapes the doorway, and you see the figure of an elderly neighbor, stooped slightly but steady, waiting. His eyes brighten at the sight of the approaching helpers, a smile of genuine gratitude spreading across his face. You feel the significance of the jars you carry. Not merely water, but care, attention, and the assurance that no one in Medina stands alone when life demands vigilance and support. The group carefully transfers the jars to the courtyard, balancing them on low benches and handing them inside with gentle hands. The elder thanks each of you individually, speaking in quiet tones of appreciation, reminding everyone that even small acts of service reinforce the bonds of community. You notice the way he moves deliberately, taking his time, ensuring each jar is positioned for ease of use, teaching you through example that thoughtful care is as important as action itself. As the water is settled and the jars return to their proper places, you pause for a moment, reflecting on the quiet lessons of the night. You have experienced scarcity tempered by gratitude, effort softened by patience, and the invisible threads of interdependence that hold the city together. Following the elders' careful movements, you prepare to continue with the group, realizing that even as one task concludes, the practice of care and attention continues, seamlessly blending into the rhythm of life in Medina. With the water safely delivered, you walk alongside the group through the quiet streets, the glow of lanterns flickering against clay walls. The elder you helped is accompanied by younger neighbors, who instinctively yield space for him to pass first, guiding him gently when the path narrows or uneven stones threaten a misstep. You notice the care in every gesture, hands lightly supporting arms, voices lowered in respect, eyes attentive to needs without drawing attention to the act itself. In Medina, honoring elders is woven into daily life, a quiet practice as natural as greeting a neighbor or tending a flock. Arriving at a small courtyard, the elder settles onto a low bench while the others kneel or crouch nearby, creating a circle that blends reverence with intimacy. A younger woman offers him water, and he sips slowly, the the rhythm unhurried, as if each motion holds a lesson in patience. Around him, neighbors and family members listen closely, hanging on his words not out of obligation, but from recognition of experience and wisdom. The conversation flows easily, punctuated with gentle laughter or reflective nods, as stories of past seasons, travels, and challenges are shared. You observe how the elder speaks of hardships faced in earlier times, scarcity of resources, harsh weather, and the lessons learned from navigating them. He recounts small acts of ingenuity, moments of solidarity, and the principles that guided the community through both prosperity and difficulty. Those around him ask questions, clarify details, and occasionally add their own recollections, creating a living dialogue where memory shapes collective understanding. Even children present are invited to listen, their attention drawn by the cadence of storytelling and the vividness of the elder's descriptions. Every gesture conveys respect. Hands are offered to steady him if he shifts, words are chosen to honor insight, and pauses are allowed for reflection. You notice that care for elders in Medina extends beyond immediate safety. It encompasses listening, learning, and incorporating their experience into the community's ongoing life. In watching, you realize that the elders themselves hold a subtle authority, not through command, but through the weight of accumulated experience and the trust of those around them. As the night deepens, the elder begins to speak of the desert beyond Medina, recalling distant dunes, the sparse greenery of oasis gardens, and the enduring patience required to travel and thrive in such an unforgiving landscape. He describes how early communities relied on careful observation, prayer, and cooperation to navigate scarcity, emphasizing the lessons of humility and resilience. His voice carries a rhythm that mirrors the soft wind of the desert, each sentence evoking both place and principle, a bridge between past and present. Moved by his recollection, you feel the pull of the open land he describes. The city, so full of warmth, rhythm, and careful attention, fades into the background of your imagination as he paints images of sand-colored horizons, distant palms, and the long, unbroken stretches where life depends entirely on vigilance, knowledge, and patience. You sense the continuity of experience, the same principles guiding the care of elders in the city, now applied to survival and reflection at the desert edge. Rising from the courtyard, you prepare to follow him once more, this time toward the outskirts of Medina. The night air is cool, and the lanterns of the city glow softly behind you, a comforting presence even as the path ahead opens into the vastness beyond. Guided by the elder's memory and the stories carried across generations, you step toward the desert edge, ready to witness the land that shaped the community's resilience and wisdom. The elder leads you along a narrow, dusty path that gradually widens as the city walls recede behind you. The lanterns of Medina shrink to a gentle glow, and the murmurs of evening gatherings fade into the distance, replaced by the quiet rhythm of the desert night. The horizon stretches endlessly, soft dunes catching the moonlight, and the air carries the scent of dry earth, crushed herbs, and distant palms. You find a flat stone at the edge of a small rise and settle there, your gaze sweeping over both the city you have walked through and the vast openness beyond. Sitting quietly, you feel the stillness of this border space, the liminal zone where the cultivated life of the city meets the untamed desert. The contrast is stark. Homes clustered in warm proximity, smoke curling from hearths, laughter echoing in streets, versus the quiet, indifferent sweep of sand and wind. In this silence, your thoughts turn inward. You reflect on the fragility of early community life, the delicate balance of cooperation and trust, and the weight of responsibility that sustains even a small city. How easily could scarcity, conflict, or misjudgment disrupt the harmony you have observed? And yet, the same community demonstrates resilience, patience, and careful stewardship in every act, from water collection to the honoring of elders. The horizon seems to mirror the lessons of Medina itself. The vast desert reminds you of humility. Human effort is limited. Life is unpredictable, and survival requires both diligence and grace. At the same time, hope is tangible in the faint lights of the city, in the laughter of children, in the careful tending of resources, and in the shared prayers of neighbors. You consider the interplay of uncertainty and faith, noticing how the community leans not on power or abundance, but on trust, guidance, and ethical continuity. Each element of life, even the smallest, contributes to a larger pattern, binding individuals together in quiet yet meaningful interdependence. As you watch, a gentle wind stirs the sand, carrying a few dry leaves and the faint scent of cooking fires from the city. You remember the faces you've encountered, the merchants negotiating patiently, the mothers and children learning through chores and play, the elders guiding with wisdom and care. All these moments, woven together, form a subtle tapestry of communal life. You sense that understanding this rhythm requires observation, patience, and reflection, the same qualities that shepherds and children alike cultivate in their daily acts. Lost in thought, you almost fail to notice a hand resting lightly on your shoulder. The touch is familiar and grounding, warm against the cool desert night. You look up to see a friend, smiling quietly, offering a subtle reminder that it is time to return to the life of the city. The gesture carries both reassurance and gentle insistence, bridging the quiet. Reflection of the boundary with the shared world you have been walking through. Rising, you take a final glance at the expanse before you. The dunes, the horizon, and the edge of Medina glowing softly behind. The lessons of patience, humility, and communal care linger in your mind, anchored by the tactile presence of your friend. Together, you begin the walk back down the slope, returning to the streets and homes, carrying with you the stillness of the desert and the enduring rhythm of life that sustains the early city. You follow your friend down the winding streets, back toward the warmly lit homes of Medina. The city feels softer at night, its usual bustle replaced by quiet footsteps, low conversations, and the occasional clink of utensils as families prepare simple meals. In a small courtyard, a gathering has formed beneath a cluster of palm trees. A low fire flickers at the center, casting dancing shadows across the faces of neighbors who sit on woven mats, sharing bread, dates, and small bowls of milk. The aroma is modest yet inviting, a reminder that nourishment in Medina comes as much from care and community as from food itself. You settle among them, observing how each person receives what is offered with quiet gratitude. Bread is broken into even pieces and passed around, dates offered to children first, and milk poured carefully into clay cups. Conversation flows gently, punctuated by laughter and soft storytelling. A grandmother recounts an amusing incident from her youth, her eyes twinkling as the children giggle, while an elder adds a thoughtful reflection about patience and trust, seamlessly blending humor with moral insight. The stories meander naturally, sometimes interrupted by quiet nods of acknowledgement or the gentle clinking of cups, creating a rhythm that mirrors the collective heartbeat of the gathering. You notice how the meal itself fosters connection. Sharing food in this way is more than sustenance. It is a ritual of bonding. People speak in turns, listening as much as they talk, reinforcing a sense of respect and shared life. Even in its simplicity, the meal embodies generosity. The portions are small, yet everyone receives enough, and nothing is wasted. The balance between giving and receiving is intuitive, each participant contributing to and benefiting from the shared experience, a microcosm of the broader values that sustain the city. Children curl up beside adults with dates in hand, occasionally stealing playful bites from one another, while teenagers help distribute bread and milk, learning through participation the practices of care, respect, and attention. Each action, small, deliberate, and considered, reflects the larger principle you've seen throughout Medina. Life is maintained through attentiveness, cooperation, and kindness. Even casual conversation becomes an avenue for instruction and reflection. For wisdom is not confined to formal circles, but flows freely across generations. As the night deepens, stars appear overhead, bright against the clear desert sky, and the flickering firelight mingles with their steady glow. The rhythm of the gathering slows, voices soften, and a calm stillness settles. Yet the energy of communal life remains palpable in the gestures, the laughter, and the quiet exchanges of advice and memory. You sense that these shared meals are more than routine. They are a glue, binding hearts, shaping relationships, and strengthening the city's moral fabric. Once the meal concludes, someone rises and suggests visiting the small date storage rooms nearby. These humble chambers, tucked behind clay walls, hold the city's preserved resources, carefully tended to ensure sustenance in leaner times. Curiosity draws you to follow, eager to see how preservation and foresight, much like generosity and shared meals, weave into the everyday life of Medina. The night still hums gently around you, carrying lessons in patience, resourcefulness, and gratitude as you step toward the small, shadowed storage rooms. You step into the cool, shadowed interior of the date storage rooms, the air carrying a faint sweetness and the earthy scent of clay and straw. Rows of neatly stacked dates, bundled in woven mats and earthen jars, fill the space, each carefully labeled with the family or neighborhood it belongs to. An elder shows you the process, how dates are dried in the sun to preserve them, then counted, sorted by ripeness, and stored to protect against spoilage. Every movement is deliberate, practiced, and precise, reflecting generations of knowledge passed down through observation and experience. You watch as helpers carefully lift the bundles, checking each layer for insects or imperfections, turning the dates with gentle hands to ensure air circulates evenly. The counting process is meticulous. Small knots in string or marks on clay tablets keep track of the amounts, allowing the community to plan for future seasons when food may be scarce. You notice how communal this work is. No one person does it alone, and the process itself strengthens bonds, teaching patience, cooperation, and foresight. An older woman explains the reasoning behind each method. Preserving food is preserving life, she says quietly, gesturing to the neatly organized rows. It is not just for today, but for times when the desert tests us, when scarcity reminds us how careful we must be. Resourcefulness is our protection, and planning is an act of faith. Her words resonate as you observe the intricate system of organization. Dates assigned to families, small portions set aside for travelers, and others reserved for charity, ensuring that every member of the community is considered. You handle a small bundle, noting its weight and texture, and feel the care embedded in every layer. Even the earthen jars, rough to the touch, are shaped to keep moisture out while allowing just enough air for preservation. It is a quiet form of ingenuity, a blending of practical knowledge, attentiveness, and foresight. Watching the distribution, you see how each family receives their share, how quantities are recorded, and how generosity is incorporated seamlessly into the process. The room hums with purpose, a rhythm of labor and care that mirrors the larger life of Medina itself. The elder guides you to the doorway as the work continues, the soft chatter of helpers blending with the distant hum of the city. Stepping outside, the night air greets you, carrying a sense of completion and shared responsibility. You notice a merchant nearby, preparing his goods for a journey beyond the city walls. Camels are being loaded with sacks and bundles, and the faint smell of spices and dried goods mingles with the desert breeze. The same principles you have observed, care, attention, and planning, apply to his preparation, but now on a scale that will stretch across roads and caravans, connecting Medina to distant markets. Intrigued, you walk alongside him as he checks his supplies and ensures that every item is properly secured. He tests the balance of the load on each camel, whispers words of reassurance to the animals, and carefully measures provisions for the journey. Watching him, you see the continuity between the city's careful preservation and the broader world beyond. The knowledge of storage, distribution, and patience extends naturally to trade and travel. With each knot tied and each bundle checked, you understand that survival and prosperity depend not only on individual skill, but on the network of relationships, trust, and foresight that sustain every step. The night stretches quietly around you, and as the first camels begin to move, you step with the merchant through Medina's streets, carrying forward the lessons of resourcefulness, preparation, and care into the unfolding journey beyond the city walls. The merchant leads you to a small courtyard where a caravan is assembling under the soft glow of lanterns. Camels kneel patiently on the dust, their wide eyes blinking against the flickering light, while handlers check saddles and adjust ropes. Bundles of dates, grain, fabrics, and spices are carefully balanced, each item measured to distribute weight evenly and ensure nothing shifts during the long journey. The air carries the mingled scents of leather, dried goods, and the faint musk of the animals, a tangible reminder of the preparations required to move safely through desert terrain. Travelers move with purposeful efficiency, yet there is a quiet tension in their steps. Each knot tied, each bundle lifted, each strap adjusted is precise and deliberate, reflecting both experience and caution. You notice how the community around them works together seamlessly. One person steadies a camel, while another secures goods. A third recites a short prayer under their breath, invoking protection for the long road ahead. The blending of practical skill and spiritual mindfulness underscores the care, shamo, invested in every journey, as though every step forward carries both material and moral weight. You watch as the merchant kneels beside a camel, measuring provisions for the journey. Small bags of dates, jars of water, and bundles of spices neatly arranged to last for days on the road. Travelers check their own gear, adjusting cloth wraps around the loads, balancing jars, and ensuring that nothing is left unsecured. In hushed tones, prayers are offered, short invocations for safety, guidance, and the protection of animals and humans alike. The moment feels solemn yet hopeful, a blend of anticipation, diligence, and trust in the unseen hand guiding their path. Children from nearby households linger at the edge, curious but respectful, observing how each camel is carefully loaded and every traveler prepares for departure. Their eyes follow the movement of ropes, the placement of bundles, and the gentle commands exchanged between handlers and animals. You realize that even these seemingly simple preparations are teaching moments: patience, attentiveness, foresight, and respect for both fellow humans and the creatures who bear the weight of trade. Once all the camels are secured and provisions measured, the merchant signals for a brief pause. Travelers gather in a small circle, heads bowed in prayer. You feel the anticipation in the air, each person aware of the challenges ahead, yet grounded by the preparation they have undertaken. There is uncertainty, certainly, but it is tempered by skill, trust, and the invisible network of community that supports them. From those who tend the flocks to those who preserve the food that now fills the saddlebags. The caravan begins to rise, camels standing slowly, their padded feet stirring soft clouds of dust. Travelers adjust their positions, hands resting lightly on the reins, eyes scanning the path before them. You sense the mixture of excitement and caution, the awareness that the journey will test endurance, skill, and patience. The merchant nods briefly to companions and neighbors, exchanging final words of encouragement and reassurance, the ritual of departure marking both ending and beginning. As the caravan moves steadily toward the horizon, you linger in the courtyard, watching the soft figures recede into the night. After heartfelt goodbyes to those remaining, you step back through the quiet streets of Medina, the soft glow of lanterns guiding your path. The city now feels hushed, peaceful, and intimate, the mosque looming gently ahead as a reminder of calm reflection and continuity. You make your way toward its familiar walls, carrying with you the lessons of preparation, anticipation, and the trust that sustains both travel and community life. The streets of Medina have grown hushed. The echoes of the caravan and evening activity now faded into memory. You step through a narrow lane, guided by the faint glow of a few remaining lanterns, and arrive once more at the mosque. Its mud brick walls are bathed in silver moonlight, and the courtyard feels spacious yet intimate in the stillness of late night. A gentle breeze stirs the thatch of the roof, carrying the faint scent of dates, herbs, and the lingering warmth of daytime gatherings. Every sound is small: the soft creak of a wooden door, a distant rustle of palm fronds, and the occasional gentle footstep of a caretaker checking the premises. Inside, the mosque is nearly empty, but the quiet hum of devotion persists. One or two individuals sit in small corners, their heads bowed over careful recitation of Quranic verses. Each whisper of a syllable seems amplified in the silence, filling the vast space with a subtle rhythm of faith and focus. Others have already settled into mats for the night, the soft rise and fall of their breathing blending with the faint rustle of garments. Even the birds perched quietly along the beams seem to sense the calm, unmoving, except for occasional shifts in the shadows. You wander slowly through the prayer hall, noticing the way moonlight slips across mud brick pillars, casting long, geometric shadows that stretch across the floor. The tiles, worn smooth by countless feet, glint faintly under the silver glow. A sense of timelessness settles over you. The devotion of those who came before, the care of those who maintain the space, and the quiet persistence of daily life all converge here in gentle harmony. Every small noise, the turn of a page, a whispered prayer, the sigh of night air becomes part of the mosque's living rhythm, a meditation in motion for anyone attuned to it. Sitting in a corner, you allow yourself to absorb the stillness, reflecting on the lessons of the day, shared meals, tending to elders, observing the rhythm of the marketplace, helping deliver water, and witnessing the care and cooperation that sustain the city. Each experience feels interconnected, threads woven into a tapestry of communal life that is both fragile and enduring. The tranquility of the mosque magnifies these reflections, letting them settle deeply, as if the walls themselves hold memory, whispering continuity and constancy. Occasionally, a caretaker passes silently, his presence acknowledged only by a small nod or a subtle shift of shadow. The cool breeze carries distant scents of night-blooming flowers and warm clay, mingling with the soft fragrance of incense left burning in a small corner. The atmosphere encourages gentle introspection. How the city functions, how lives are intertwined, and how even moments of quiet, simple devotion contribute to the resilience and beauty of this community. But as minutes stretch into hours, your body begins to respond to the day's exertions. The weight of walking through streets, assisting neighbors, observing rituals, and carrying water now presses upon your limbs. Even in this serene, almost sacred space, exhaustion whispers insistently. The soft rhythm of breathing, the gentle flicker of moonlight, and the quiet rustle of prayer mats signal the time to pause. Rising slowly, You search for a place to rest, mindful of the calm surrounding you. A woven mat awaits in a quiet corner, slightly worn, but comfortable enough for repose. You settle onto it, folding your hands beneath your head, letting the cool floor ground you. The mosque continues its quiet vigil around you, carrying the echoes of the city's life and the lessons of the day. Closing your eyes, you allow your mind to drift, surrendering to rest while holding the serenity and rhythms of early Medina close. The morning lanterns have long dimmed, and the soft night outside the mosque signals the city's lull. You rise quietly, careful not to disturb those still in gentle repose, and follow the narrow streets back toward a modest home where you have been welcomed for the night. The clay walls rise simply, warm under the moonlight, and the doorway frames a small courtyard where a few palm fronds sway softly in the cool desert breeze. Inside, the home feels sheltered and intimate, a cocoon of calm after a day filled with the rhythms and responsibilities of Medina. The room is modest. A woven mat lies neatly on the floor, a low bench stands against one wall, and a few clay jars are tucked in corners, storing water, grain, or dried dates. The scent of earth and herbs lingers faintly, carried from cooking earlier in the day, and the walls hold the gentle weight of family life, each scratch and curve telling stories of daily living. You notice how little is needed here for comfort, the essentials arranged with care, and a sense of warmth radiating from the simplicity itself. You settle onto the mat, feeling the coolness of the floor through your clothing. Outside, the desert air drifts through the open doorway, carrying the faint rustle of distant palms and the soft murmur of the city at rest. The quiet is profound yet nurturing, wrapping around you like a gentle cloak. The sounds of the household, the occasional movement of an animal in the courtyard, the soft creak of a door, or the distant whisper of someone moving in another room, blend seamlessly into the rhythm of night, creating a lullaby of ordinary life. As you lie back, you allow your body to sink into the comfort of the simple bedding. The warmth of the day's sun has faded, replaced by the cool, steady air that drifts lazily across the floor. The home itself seems to breathe slowly with you, settling into the evening's calm, as if acknowledging your presence. Even the shadows, cast softly by the moonlight through the doorway, feel familiar, stretching across walls and floor in quiet symmetry, their gentle movements marking the passage of time without urgency. Your mind drifts naturally over the day's experiences. You recall walking through narrow streets, greeting neighbors, and observing the marketplace awaken in earnest. You remember the quiet lessons learned at the well, the shared meals under the palms, and the careful tending of food and water, faces of elders, the laughter of children, the serene focus of scholars in the mosque. All these impressions float gently, interwoven with moments of reflection and insight. Each memory carries both simplicity and significance, a reminder of how deeply ordinary actions are imbued with care, faith, and attention to others. The rhythm of Medina's life settles into you. You recall carrying jars of water alongside neighbors, observing the preparation of caravans, and witnessing acts of generosity, patience, and vigilance. The lessons of humility, resourcefulness, and interconnectedness echo softly, blending with the quiet of the room, the rustle of the breeze, and the faint murmur of distant night activity. You sense how these experiences, though small individually, form the invisible threads that hold the community together, sustaining trust, gratitude, and cooperation across homes and streets. As your eyes grow heavy, the calm of the home and the desert night envelops you completely. The woven mat beneath you, the clay walls around you, and the gentle stir of air through the doorway offer a safe, steady rhythm. You allow your body and mind to surrender fully, carrying the lessons, rhythms, and faces of the day with you. The ordinary beauty of life in early Medina, the quiet care, the shared responsibility, and the enduring human connection fades gently into dreams, leaving you steeped in deep calm as sleep finally takes hold. The first light of dawn filters softly through the small window of the clay home, brushing the walls with a gentle amber glow. You stretch lightly, the cool desert air drifting in to meet the warmth of the rising sun. Outside, the city begins to stir once more. A faint murmur of voices, the distant bleat of goats, the rhythmic shuffle of sandals along the sandy streets. The hush of night has lifted, replaced by the familiar cadence of daily life in Medina, steady, deliberate, and intimate. You rise from the woven mat and step into the courtyard, feeling the earth firm beneath your feet. The palm fronds sway gently, and the scent of morning, freshly baked bread, dried dates, and the faint aroma of herbs fills the air. Around you, families awaken quietly, children rubbing sleep from their eyes, mothers tending hearths, and elders pausing briefly to offer prayers of thanks. Every movement, every exchange carries the same care and attentiveness you have observed throughout your days here. Life unfolds in modest gestures, breaking bread, offering water, teaching small verses, checking supplies. But each act resonates with meaning. As you walk through the streets once more, you notice the intricate rhythms of the city. Neighbors greet each other with smiles and nods. Merchants arrange their simple goods, and the mosque's minaret glows faintly in the morning light, calling believers to prayer. The lessons of the past days resonate with you now. Patience, humility, generosity, vigilance, and attentiveness are not abstract ideals. They are woven into the daily acts that sustain life. The new day mirrors the last in routine, yet each moment feels imbued with significance, a living demonstration of communal care and spiritual mindfulness. You pause for a moment near the well, watching women lift jars and children play along the edges, their laughter mingling with the gurgle of water. In that ordinary scene, you recognize the extraordinary effort of collaboration, the quiet endurance of shared responsibility, and the simplicity through which wisdom and grace flow. Walking past the marketplace, you see merchants arranging dates, grains, and cloth, trading with honesty and care, their gestures echoing the ethical principles that guide every interaction in this city. Even the desert beyond the city walls seems to hold its own lessons of patience, observation, and humility a reminder that life depends on balance between provision and restraint. At the mosque, you pause again, listening to the soft rhythm of morning recitation. A few believers sit in small circles, discussing verses and ethics, their voices gentle yet vibrant. You see children learning from elders, travelers resting briefly before continuing their journeys, and families gathering for the day's first meal. The city breathes in unison with its people, a harmony of faith, duty, and care that has guided this community from one day to the next, and that continues to shape life quietly, steadfastly, and meaningfully. As the sun climbs higher, you reflect on the tapestry of experiences you have witnessed, the shared meals under starlight, the careful preservation of resources, the caravan journeys, the honoring of elders, the play and learning of children, the care for the sick, and the simple rhythms of daily life. Each lesson resonates, revealing the interconnectedness of people, faith, and the environment, and illustrating how even the smallest gestures hold significance when guided by intention and humility. With the city fully awake around you, you feel the continuity of these lessons settling within. Medina's life, its rituals, responsibilities, and quiet acts of generosity has left a lasting imprint, teaching that faith is reflected in action, that community thrives on care and vigilance, and that gratitude is woven into every shared moment. As you step back through the streets, toward the world you know in the present, you carry these truths with you. A deepened understanding of humility, the rhythm of communal life, and the enduring power of simple, thoughtful acts. The story closes here, yet its lessons linger, quietly guiding the steps you take beyond the bounds of early Medina.